Hey guys, we're back for day 10. It's Denise McKinney, Transformational Life Coach, and your host of 10 Pages a Day Virtual Book Club. So, how are you guys feeling after doing that exercise at the end of the last chapter on page 63 and 64? I hope you are feeling a little bit more expansive, a little bit more aware, not bad. I hope you're not feeling bad. That's important that you're not feeling bad about where you are right now. Self-awareness is so integral to personal growth and development. You have to be aware, and sometimes things aren't going to be as pretty as we'd like them to be, but we need to see that in order to make changes in our lives. So that said, I hope that you looked at your numbers and you feel pretty good about having done it. Because I'll tell you what, one of the biggest challenges that comes up for me in personal growth is often, well, it was anyway, not so much now, but it was that when an exercise was presented that I had to do work on and I had to look at myself, there were sometimes things that I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So if you're having that reaction, that's okay. That's a good thing. That means you're in a place that's ripe for transformation. That resistance is often the thing that's telling you, let's push past this, let's do it. So I encourage you to do the exercise. If you didn't, again, approaching it without judgment, with love and gentleness for yourself and where you've been in your life. And just a note to consider the positive intentions. We did talk about that in this book, but to consider the positive intentions of all of the things in your life up to this point, your beliefs, your behavior patterns, the things that maybe other people have said to you, which aren't always going to be of the best intention, but a lot of this stuff does have a positive intention, maybe to keep you safe or maybe to keep you feeling loved or belonging to your tribe. So again, this is just a place to start. It is not where we're going to end. Again, we are reading The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. I'm already 2.5 minutes in just with that beginning part, so let's jump into chapter 4, Rewriting Your Models of Reality. There's a great quote from Tony Robbins on this part. I'm a super fan. Well, I guess I'm a super fan. I don't really watch any of his stuff or listen to any of his stuff, but I just really like what he's about whenever I come across something. I'm gonna have to add him to my sharpening the saw and kind of stuff. And I do read him. I really like Tony Robbins, but he says this: our beliefs are like unquestioned commands telling us how things are, what's possible and impossible, and what we can and cannot do. They shape every action, every thought, and every feeling that we experience. As a result, changing our belief systems is central to making any real and lasting change in our lives. I think that we're already discovering that that's true, no? Like, I believe it completely. It's part of why I'm so passionate about this and why I'm sharing my 10 pages a day with you. But it seems obvious to me because of where I've come from. It may not seem obvious to everyone. So just think about that. So in this chapter, we're going to talk about rewriting your models of reality, where we learn to choose and upgrade our beliefs. So this is a great chapter. Vishen talks about his experiences. I want to share this one, actually. He calls it Advice from a Monk in a Hot Tub. I've never had a monk hang out with me in a hot tub. Wouldn't be against it. It's pretty cool. But he was hanging out, I guess, with Tony Robbins on his island, at this 9-day meditation, self-exploration event. And he got to sit down with this monk. And this monk tells him, you know what your problem is? You have low self-esteem. And at this point, Vishen's on an island with some of the top thinkers and entrepreneurs in the world, with Tony Robbins and his family. He's done this whole thing. He's an entrepreneur with a huge business, and he's like, excuse you, I do not have low self-esteem. And the monk cuts him off and he says, This is a cause of all of your problems. I've observed you. When you're brainstorming with your partner and he shoots down one of your ideas, you get agitated and defensive. I bet you have issues with your wife, and I bet you have issues with others. You cannot take criticism, and it's all because of one thing. You have low self-esteem. Well, dang. But I share this because, just again, this video blog is very much about my 10 pages. It's very much about my journey and hopefully yours as well, but I intend to have a lot of transparency here. So reading this, kind of going through the things that I'm going through right now with my family, this was like exactly what I needed to read today, was this self-esteem issue, because I have that problem when I feel like I'm doing something really well or I'm trying, and it's not necessarily that I become defensive per se, which that does happen. I will completely admit to that. But more than that, it starts to trigger something inside of me like, oh, well, I haven't done that perfectly, so I'm like the worst. And it's interesting when it comes to personal growth. I really wanted to speak to this today because I feel like there are probably a lot of people out there who have experienced this. But when you read somebody else's experience and they're talking about how they've become better, how they've up-leveled in some way, it can trigger a feeling in ourselves like, ugh, I'm not there yet. I wish I was there. I wish I was, this, that, everything. It's that compare and despair that I talked about in a previous video. So it's a struggle to like my biggest struggle and my biggest desire in life is unconditional love, right? To both give and experience unconditional love. And that is one of the hardest things, but that is what I'm drawn to spiritually, emotionally. That's my center. And I struggle with it. I struggle with allowing a person to, it's not necessarily a matter of wanting to fix somebody, but that true compassion is acceptance. It's unconditional love. And I think when we see somebody in pain that we feel like we can fix, even stuff like that, we move away from compassion and we move to trying to fix someone's life. And that means we're no longer allowing ourselves to be in their experience. We're in our own. We're saying, well, this is what you should do to make this different, but that's from our own space, not from somebody else's. As a coach, what I try to do every time I sit down with a client is to hold space for them to be exactly who they need to be right then at that moment. And yet in my personal life, it's much harder to do. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, just in case there's anything that, and funny enough, in this story, Vishen gets triggered and he gets agitated and upset because the monk is criticizing him on having low self-esteem, and that's his realization that, oh crap, it's true. So sometimes when we are triggered by those things, that is an indication of what's really going on there. I'm at 8.5 minutes, so I better speed this up really quickly. I went on my own little diatribe there. By the way, we are chapter 4, starts at page 65. So we are going to be going to the top of page 75. So he asks these questions, what might happen if I developed a belief that, so here's what happens with the whole self-esteem thing. He tracks that back to a feeling of I am not enough. And this is why it was important for me to tell my little thing there, because that is an issue that I'm working through, is that feeling of I am enough. So that's that question. What might happen if I developed a belief that I was enough and had nothing to prove? And oftentimes we don't have a good answer as to why that would be a bad thing. But it's a question that we don't ask ourselves. So a lot of us are out there feeling like we're not enough for any reason, be it as a mom, as a business owner, as an employee, as a girlfriend, as a boyfriend, as a wife, as a husband, all these roles. But what might happen if we believed that we were enough and had nothing to prove? I need to go back to this. I had a mantra a year ago or so that was, I have nothing to lose, nothing to hide, and nothing to fear. I think there was something like that. But it was it was really helpful for me because it really helped me step into speaking my truth to people, that who I am is enough. What I have to say is enough, that I can come from a place of love. A lot of times when you're coming from a place of anger or agitation or any of those things, it's fear-based or it's anger-based because somebody's triggered something in you that maybe is about that I am not enough. So he goes into lesson 1, which is our models of reality lie below the surface. Often we do not realize we have them until some intervention or contemplative practice makes us aware. And he also writes, we also have models of reality embedded deep within us that we're mostly unaware of. What you believe is much smaller than what you don't know you believe. And what we're getting into in this chapter is digging into that, diving in, seeing what our beliefs are. It might not be pretty, and that's okay. I want to remind you that's okay. I've discovered some just ridiculous beliefs in me that I'm like, oh. But that's part of the process. And I'm happier to have discovered them because then I could shift them than not to have at all, because then I'd still be living with them, working in the background and creating a life for me that I no longer want to live. So it really comes down to that question is what do you want? What do you want as your outcome? And what do you have to do to get there? And he writes this, and I like, much of growing wiser and moving toward the extraordinary is really about becoming aware of the models of reality that you carry with you without realizing it. Self-awareness is one of the biggest pillars that I work on as a coach. If we're not aware, then we can't change things. The two just don't go, they go together. To be aware, again, and this is another tenet which I mentioned in another video, is that lack of judgment, but from curiosity, that opens up your ability to become aware, because you can do it without becoming angry about it. You can do it without becoming judgmental about it. You can do it without thinking, I am not enough. Which, again, that might come up, but once you figure out that that's what's at the root of everything, then you can start to build and shift and move and put new beliefs in place of that. So I'm going to just jump ahead here. I had a lot more to talk about in this chapter, but I'm going to let you read it because we're coming up on we spent a lot of time. So lesson 2 on page 70, he says, we often carry disempowering models of reality that we inherited as far back as childhood. We talked about that in the previous chapter about indoctrination, where our beliefs come from, our models. And he talks about a woman by the name of Marissa Peer. She's a well, I shouldn't say and actually here I am going to say she's a hypnotist. Well, I don't want to say that because that's people have stereotypes about it. She works with hypnotherapy as part of her practice. And one of the things she says is that the biggest ailment afflicting human beings is the idea of I am not enough. So we're constantly pushing out into the world to prove ourselves in ways that are often harmful, not only to ourselves, but to others, in order to prove that we are enough. So what kind of difference could you make in your life if you just decided to believe that you were enough? And again, remember when we talked about how your experiences back up your beliefs and your beliefs create your experiences, you change that loop to I am enough, and your experiences will start to follow suit in order to affirm that belief, and it just becomes rock solid in you. He talks about how he got some of his beliefs, and then we jump to lesson 3. So when you replace disempowering models of reality with empowering ones, tremendous changes can occur in your life at a very rapid pace. I cannot tell you how true that is. That has been my experience completely. And I want to put this out there as well. Sometimes you stick, sometimes you stall. That's all part of the process. We're decoding and removing and upgrading. Yeah, I'm 30. I'm 31. So 30 years of programming that needs to change. And yet sometimes I can be very much of that belief that I want it now. I want it all right now. But that I think is the beauty of, I think for me, the beauty of transformation in this way is seeing how it takes place over time, is seeing how things have shifted when you really didn't have the chance maybe to notice it before, but something happens that's maybe similar in a way or would have triggered you in a different way, and you step back and you're like, oh, well, I react. This is my new baseline, my new way of living, my new way of thinking about that, and it's completely different than it was when I was 15 or 25, and that's huge. That is huge because then it sets up that motivation to continue because you're like, oh my God, it works. Really quickly, and dive into we talked about the meaning making machine that goes on in our heads, and I'll tell you, I think I'm not alone, but so many experiences with the meaning making machine of how one action or one experience can snowball into just a completely unrelated belief or thought process about what happened. But he asked this, where did it go? Well, I'll just go through a couple of these, but as we believe these things to be true, they become true. All of us view the world through our own lens, colored by the experiences, meanings, and beliefs we've accumulated over the years. Again, like we were just talking about. He adds, we add meaning to every situation we see and then carry those meanings around as simplistic and often distorted and dangerous models of reality about our world. True. And again, while the bad news is that our models of reality can cause stress, sadness, loneliness, and worry, the good news is that we can upgrade them. Thank God. He goes into a really cool another study with the placebo effect, which is really awesome in here, that actually went into a surgical procedure. So read that. It's under How Our Beliefs Affect Our Looks and Our Health. And I'm going to say one last thing that he writes here, which I really like, and it was part of that section, but it's our beliefs about our body seem to have an uncanny impact on how we experience our bodies for good or bad. I will not get into that today because we're over time, but I just want you to think about that. I want you to think more deeply about your beliefs, what they mean, what they can mean for your life. And I hope you get excited about starting to shift those things. And I hope that you are excited in the fact that it's going to be a journey. That it's, that word kind of drives me crazy in personal growth and development. You hear the word journey all the time, and I'm like, ah. But it is. It's a process. It's a beautiful process. We are meant to continue to grow and expand and become better throughout our entire lives. And there's no end to that. It's not like you hit a point of perfection and you just stop. That's not how that works. Personal growth, developing all the time, always hacking and unrooting the things that are stopping you from living your absolute best life. That's always going to require work. So don't stop. Get started now if you haven't before. That's okay. Get started now and just look to the future and know that this journey never ends. It's a beautiful and amazing thing that's going to unfold over time as experiences shape the things that are happening in your life. And it's going to be so much fun. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.